Hello everyone, Wayne Motts, the President Emeritus and historian here at the Gettysburg Foundation. Wow, what a great day on the Gettysburg Battlefield to bring you another episode of Wall of Faces, Casualties at Gettysburg. I think all of you know we profile one Union and one Confederate soldier at the same part of the battlefield that are on the Wall of Faces at the Museum of the American Civil War inside the Gettysburg National Military Park Visitor Center here in Gettysburg. And each of these faces on our Wall of Faces is a soldier killed, wounded, or captured here in the Battle of Gettysburg. We've got 280 in the Union Army and 280 in the Confederate Army that are on that wall. It's my favorite exhibit by far inside the Visitor Center, and we love to go out on the battlefield and profile where these actually happen. I'm standing next to the 66th New York Volunteer Infantry Regiment, which was a unit in Brigadier General Samuel K. Zook's brigade, and fought at this location, which we call the Stony Hill, on the western border of the famed Wheatfield at Gettysburg on July 2nd, 1863. This episode is going to feature First Lieutenant Daniel Banta, who was the First Lieutenant in Company I of the 66th New York Volunteer Infantry Regiment, fought right here on the Stony Hill on the southern end of it, right here where the memorial is. And the Confederate counterpart for this episode will be Lieutenant Colonel Elbert Bland of the 7th South Carolina Infantry Regiment of Joseph Kershaw's brigade. Now let's talk a little bit about this regiment and Lieutenant Banta here on July 2nd. This regiment is part of the 2nd Corps here at Gettysburg and will come in and sweep into the Wheatfield and hit the very right of Joseph Kershaw's line, at least up near here at the top of Stony Hill, right over here behind me. One of the officers, Lieutenant Banta, will be involved in that. Now, he's born August 28, 1834. He's a native of Bergen County, New Jersey. And when the Civil War broke out, he was living in New York City. He was married, and the census says he was a carman. So he had to deal with streetcars. He was a streetcar attendant, I guess, is for a lack of a better word. Civil War breaks out. He enlists as a private in the 66th New York, then becomes a sergeant, and he's a first lieutenant in the Battle of Gettysburg. Fighting right up near here against the South Carolinians of Kershaw's brigade, he'll receive a rifle bullet that goes into his right shoulder and into his body. He'll be badly, badly wounded. He's taken to the Jacob Schwartz Farm, which is the 2nd Union Army Field Corps Hospital, and he will recover. He will go back up to New York, but this wound is going to plague him for the rest of his life. He dies November 27, 1884, and in the 1880 census, it says sick because of wounds received. I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but the census notes that these wounds are going to cause lifelong problems for Lieutenant Banta, wounded here in the Battle of Gettysburg on July 2nd, 1863, while fighting against Joseph Kershaw's brigade. Now we're going to go talk about Lieutenant Colonel Elbert Bland of the 7th South Carolina, the foe that these men are going up against. We just moved a short distance to come up to the top of the Stony Hill, and west is behind me, east is behind your view, and we're up near the location where the 7th South Carolina, that would have been over here behind me, did fighting. Our second feature today for the Wall of Faces is Lieutenant Colonel Elbert Bland of the 7th South Carolina Volunteer Infantry Regiment. Now, Colonel Bland was born April 29, 1823. So in the Battle of Gettysburg, when he's fighting here on July 2nd, he is 40 years old. And he was born in the Edgefield district of South Carolina. Now, there's another famous Gettysburg personality born there as well, and that would be James Longstreet, the Corps commander for the 7th South Carolina in the Battle of Gettysburg. Colonel Bland is a doctor by training. He graduated from medical school in New York, and in the Mexican War, in the 1840s, he was the surgeon for the 1st South Carolina Volunteer Regiment. He's married in 1854, and he has 3 children during the time of the Battle of Gettysburg. He will be commissioned officer in Company H of the 7th South Carolina, and he'll fight in battles in 1861 through 1862. He'll be wounded multiple times in action at Savage Station in 1862, at the Battle of Fredericksburg in 1862, at Gettysburg here in 1863. One of the interesting things that happens to him is in the winter of 1861 and 1862, when the 7th South Carolina is outside Manassas, Virginia, he will be playing chess with one of his best friends, Major Emmett Sybils, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, the major of the 7th South Carolina Infantry Regiment. And the two of them get in an argument over chess moves. It becomes so heated that a duel ensues, challenge for a duel, and believe it or not, Colonel Bland shoots his friend in this duel, Major Sybils, badly wounded. He will recover, and Sybils doesn't die until 1899. But all because of some chess moves, these two men have a duel of honor with pistols in the winter of 1861 and 1862. Now, Bland here at Gettysburg is wounded, fighting on July 2nd down here behind me against the 2nd Union Army Corps units, which we just talked about, Daniel Bland in the 66th New York, our counterpart to this. And Bland will be transferred to Chickamauga when Longstreet soldiers are transferred to Chickamauga, and unfortunately, Colonel Bland will be killed in action on September 20th, 1863. His body was taken back to Edgefield District, South Carolina, where he was buried in a local cemetery. Now, his wife, she lived 28 years after her husband. And reportedly, upon her death, she wanted the coffin of her husband opened, and she wanted her body placed on top of his. And that was done. Elbert Bland, here in the Battle of Gettysburg, 7th South Carolina, wounded at Gettysburg, on the Wall of Faces at Gettysburg, killed at the Battle of Chickamauga in September of 1863. And Daniel Banta, First Lieutenant, Company I of the 66th New York Volunteer Infantry Regiment of General Zook's brigade, wounded at Gettysburg, survived, but this wound still plaguing him more than 20 years after the Battle of Gettysburg. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of The Wall of Faces, and we hope you tune in on all our social media channels and follow us. Thank you very much.